All right, with that, we want to welcome everybody out this afternoon. I'm Dr. John Moyle with the University of Maryland Extension. Today, we're having a special lunch break with Extension to discuss some of the issues that are going on with AI here on the shore on Delmarva, along with some of the manure transport that we're seeing and some of that. With me today, we have Jenny Rhodes, Megan Perdue, Dr. Tablante. We also have some other guests here from Maryland Department of Ag, and we also have some USDA guests as well. We want to welcome everybody out. At this time, since I'm actually out of the state, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to run this meeting, but we want to thank you all for being here with us today.
Okay, thanks, John. Yes, thank you all for getting on, and we've had lots of phone calls, lots of questions. So I said, well, you know what? Let's just all get together and have a discussion about, what's going on. We want to be able to answer certainly everyone's questions and have a good discussion. I wanted to start, is our Secretary of Agriculture, is Joe Bartenfelder on?
I do not see him on, but it looks like maybe Steve Connolly is.
Oh, Steve, okay.
He'll be joining shortly. Secretary Bartenfelder will be here in a few minutes.
Okay. Kelsey, do you want to wait, or do you want to, well, we can start, or?
Steve Connolly is on the phone. He could probably kick things off.
Okay.
I would defer to him.
Okay, Steve, it's up to you.
Sure. I wasn't really prepared, but anyhow, a lot's been going on. As everybody's aware, we've had multiple sites in both Delaware and Maryland that are positive for high-path avian influenza. We're not like 17, 18 other states in the country that are suffering from positive cases of high-path. The first high-path case was detected on the 22nd of February in Delaware. About a week later, there were positive cases in Cecil County, Maryland, and all in commercial flocks. We've had since then commercial flocks in Kent County and Kent County, Delaware, and Queen Anne's County, Maryland. The beef found. We stood up on the 22nd of February, a unified command at the Delaware Department of Agriculture. We have a written agreement between Maryland Department of Agriculture, Delaware Department of Agriculture, USDA, and the poultry industry to stand up a unified command. Unfortunately for Delaware, they were the first to have the high path. That's why we're have the command center there in Dover. A lot of activity's been going on. I know that a lot of the growers are aware that we had jointly put out orders on limits of movement of litter. It's been about 2 weeks ago. After meeting with the epidemiologists from USDA, they gave us a certain level of confidence that the science says that if litter is kept in one place for 2 weeks, that the virus would be eliminated. So I think it was last Thursday, we made changes to the litter orders, both for Delaware and for Maryland. I know that Howard's on the call. We've asked Howard Callahan to kind of be our contact person with that. So I think that we were able to relax the litter movement requirements in the order for folks outside of the zone that's 10 kilometers around the index farm or the control zone. Within the control zone, we are, and I believe Howard's probably talked to everybody within the control zone. We're doing a state permit to allow you to be able to move that litter we consider it safe. So I don't know, Steve, I guess maybe that'll get it started.
That's good. Thanks, Steve. And I see our Secretary of Agriculture, Joe Bartenfelder, is here. Joe, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Are we unmuted now?
Yep.
Well, I'm sure Steve summed it up pretty well. From the beginning, one of the concerns was to make sure, we kept a heightened biosecurity level at all the farms on Delmarva to make sure we tried to contain HPAI at the locations where it was so it didn't get away from us and spread anymore. the same time, there was concern because everybody knows what the rising cost of fertilizer and how people are dependent on being able to use the poultry litter to be able to use for fertilizer and spread out the field. So as Steve said, once we met with the epidemiologist and found out that, once the chickens go out and gives a chance for the poultry litter to, I guess you would call it, cook for 14 days, the threat of HPAI in it would be gone. So we can move that litter out then, and it can be used in the fields, and under permit purposes only. Then we can also move it into control zones, and it can be spread there. So it was a good summary. It's been a lot of work and a lot of time being put in by both USDA, DDA, and MDA at the control command sites and also at the farms. And, it's a whole different undertaking when you're talking about laying houses versus, the broiler houses, as far as the depops, the removal, and all that. So it was a whole different experience from what most people had anticipated from any tabletop exercises. Don't prepare you for this. So that's it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Secretary. I want to thank you for all the work that you and your team and, DDA and USDA has done. It was right here in my county, and it's been hard on everybody. And I can't imagine, you guys were on the front lines trying to make decisions. And I know it's hard to make those decisions that affect people, but hopefully we're going to squash this and be able to move on. So I think Georgie, are you on? Georgie Cartanza from Delaware. There she is.
Oh, yeah, I'm on.
Georgie, you just want to
My
say
vehicle.
hi? There you go. You want to introduce yourself, Georgie?
Oh yeah, I'm the Georgie Cartanza Poultry Extension Agent for University of Delaware, and so I go statewide for Delaware.
Is anybody else in Delaware, Georgie, that you wanted to say anything before we get started?
I know our State Secretary of Agriculture and the vet were not available for this conversation today, but certainly if there's any questions that are raised that I'm not able to answer, or the other representatives from USDA are not able to answer, I will certainly get back to you.
Okay, all right. And then I would.
Oh, good. Sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to step on you. Georgia, this is Bob Coleman here at the Nutrient Management Commission. So I'm available for Delaware farmers too.
Good.
Thank you.
And then I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce Holly Porter and James Fisher from the Delmarva Chicken Association. So we all work as a team. Everybody's working together to try to get information out and keep everybody informed. Holly, did you want to say anything quick before we get started?
No, I appreciate, again, this opportunity. Yes, my background is where I dream to be, not where I really am at right now. But again, appreciate everyone's hard work from the state, the feds, and especially to our industry and all of our growers as well, too, as you continue to do everything possible to keep this virus away from your farm. So thank you.
Okay. All right, so we will open it up for questions. You can unmute and ask a question, or if you want to type something in the chat, we're going to be monitoring the chat as we move forward.
Actually, if they could raise your hand, there is a raise hand feature, and that'll move you to the front so we can do it in an orderly fashion.
Okay, that works, John. I know you like order. Here we go. Okay, Rob, you're first. I see you first.
I was just curious, do we have anything as far as guidance on what to expect being inside a hot zone with or obviously with chickens? I kind of know where I stand. Some guys without, I think, have some questions on where do they stand.
So Rob, tell us where you are. I know where you are, but other people may not.
So I am currently in the zone in the Kent County, Delaware area.
Anyone want to chime in to talk about Rob?
I'm willing to talk about Maryland, which should relate to Delaware, if that makes any sense to you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Just for ones that don't know me, again, I'm Howard Callahan. I'm with the Maryland Department of Ag's Nutrient Management Program, but I'm handling in Maryland the people that need to apply for a permit. Maryland and Delaware are working together, so we're hopefully doing things parallel to our intent is to be doing the same thing in both states. In the latest executive order from the 18th, it basically requires every poultry operation in the entire state of Maryland or Delaware to follow the 14-day rule, which basically says litter cannot leave your production area until it has at least been 14 days, I'll say, away from live birds. Only people in Maryland and Delaware, to my knowledge, the same thing, that are in what we call the restricted area are people that are within 10 kilometers of an active site. So in Maryland, for an example, I know we had 34 total farms that met that criteria. Of that 34 farms, there was only 27 actual operators because some farmers had multiple locations in the zone. Those farmers in Maryland were all directly contacted by me on Saturday morning, the 19th. So anybody that's in that zone has been notified that they're in the zone, been notified, and they shared a copy of the executive order with them, and as well as what they need to do to obtain a permit if they need a permit. Currently in Maryland at this moment, I've issued 8 permits for sites that are in those zones that basically need to move litter. And basically it's dependent on when their birds leave is when that permit, I guess, would say is effective. So if you haven't been directly notified, at least in Maryland, I think Delaware is doing the same, but I can't speak 100%, then you're not in what I call the restricted zones, because it is not the same map that was originally put out with the first executive order. It got condensed. And again, we just have a list of who they are and we notify them directly. So either generally by email and or phone calls or a combination thereof. So again, I'm getting a lot of people call that maybe like this gentleman are just uncertain. They're hearing things and they're not sure where they fit, where they don't fit. So I'm doing a fair amount of explaining once they tell me where they are, that yes, you just need to follow the 14-day rule, but in that case, you would not need to follow, you would not need to have a permit. Hopefully that answers the question to some degree.
Rob, does that help?
Yeah, the one thing I'm hearing from some neighbors is the ones that are out, they're, litter's all taken care of. What's the clock as far as when can they expect to see birds again? And obviously there's company regulations and there'll be some state and federal regulation, but is there anybody hearing any guidance kind of on that, the length to expect to be out?
Hey, Jenny, this is Steve Conley. If I could just jump in.
Sure, Steve, thank you.
So we received guidance from APHIS in the last 2 days. There's a document that we received. I think each of the incidents going to have different time frames because they're in different points of where they are in their composting and clean out and disinfecting of the operation. But if all things go well, I think that from once the compost windrows are capped, there could be the last windrows on the premise are capped. It could be under 30 days that we would be able to put a release on the hold orders on the individual farms in Maryland. And some farms have already, frankly, that process is a week old already. I do think that the situation in Cecil County may be a while before it's totally composted and the compost piles are capped. It could be another week and a half or so.
Folks, if I could jump in, it's Bob Coleman here. I just wanted to echo everything Howard said. In Delaware is the same as Maryland. So if there are any Delaware growers here, I've been reaching out to people too by phone. And we've also asked the poultry company to reach out to their various members, not only in the control area, the 6.2 mile radius, but even those farms that are just in the general neighborhood, to contact us here at DDA if they have any uncertainty about the various respective secretaries' control orders. And anybody that needs to talk to me can get me at 302-698-4556. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Bob, and thank you, Steve. Howard, back to one other thing that you and I have talked about, and I'd like for you to address is my chickens are going out, but I'm getting chickens back in 10 days. And what can I do on my farm?
Right. So we've already crossed that bridge or that scenario. But again, it's 14 days before litter can leave the production area of the farm, after the live birds have left. So for an example, you can take manure out of your house and put it in your manure storage structure because that's part of your production area. You may or may not be able to stockpile, but probably not based on the CAFO rules, in that production area, but I have no control over that at this moment. But if, for an example, if you had let's just say you had taken litter to your manure building when your chickens went out. So again, it can't leave the production area, so it can't leave that farm for 14 days. But if you got chickens back, let's say in 10 days, then you still are allowed to move the litter that would be in the shed once it meets the 14-day threshold. Again, you just have to limit interaction between that manure and any new litter. So you've got to make sure you stay out away from the chicken houses. I mean, I've had some scenarios where people have litter in the shed that's been in there since the last flock. So it's 30 to 60 days old, and they're maybe moving flocks now. But again, as soon as those flocks would go, in a sense, where the farm is kind of free, they could move the litter from the shed because it's met the 14-day criteria. But again, nothing out of the house, away from the production area until, the 14 days. I had one gentleman yesterday that, in a nutshell, that's what he was going to do. He was going to clean his litter shed out because he could. And then he was going to take, after he got that hauled away, he was going to take litter out of his houses so he could get ready for the next flock and put that in the shed. I said, that's fine. So again, if you need a permit, we're going to spell that out in the permit, what's needed and what's not, what's allowed to move when. Again, if you're not in a permit restricted zone, then it's based on the 14-day honor system. But if you got questions, ask. So we're working with those.
Good. Thanks, Howard. So if you want to unmute, you can certainly ask a question.
Hey, Rob, do you want to put Bob, do you want to put your phone number in the chat so that those in Delaware have it?
Yeah, we'll do. Okay.
Tim, did you have a question?
I do. Can I chime in here? We are not in the control area. Our farm is in Centerville. How long is our sit out time before we can get chicks back?
Kim, I will. Well, has your company told you you're going to be out? Have you had? So you're out of the 10 kilometers.
Yes.
And so has your company communicated with you when you'll get chicks back or not?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I will give them a call today.
Yeah, so give them a call today. So while there is a 10 kilometer, around, certainly the companies, they're their chicks. They have the ability to say, if you're out of that zone, yes, you're going to get chickens. No, you're going to get. So some may be, a little more restrictive, some integrators different.
Okay.
So I would say have good communications, call your service tech and, see what they say.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem.
Some integrators may actually go out to the 20-kilometer mark as well. And that is at their discretion. So that's not being determined by necessarily USDA or MDA or DDA, but that would be up to the integrator, as Jenny said.
What other questions do we have? Anything in the chat? I haven't. Megan, is there anything in the chat that I missed? All right.
In the hot zone in Delaware, moving birds today earlier than normal. They had the same question as Rob.
What other questions do we have? I know this is not a shy bunch.
Yeah, y'all ought to be asking questions as much as you're ringing our telephones. Here's your chance. You got everybody. Come on. There we go.
Here's Jacqueline. Go ahead.
Hey, Jen, what's an update on waterfowl control? Anything? I don't know if it's in season or not, but now we're not even phasing them when we just shoot over. They're just coming back. Is there any way we can get some permits rolling so we can do the dirty?
That is a good question. I will,
Jenny, I think that depends on whether they're migratory birds. If they're migratory birds, season's out, there's really not anything you can do about it. But if they're resident, like resident geese, I think you could work with USDA's Wildlife Services. Kevin Sullivan has the ability to work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to get permits to remove and cull geese that are potentially a nuisance. And the season to get rid of them is coming up because they will be molting and won't be able to fly for 2 weeks. And I think that Wildlife Services can possibly help with that. And I'm not in the office, but I could get, I'll get you that number, Jenny, and send it to you for Mr. Sullivan.
Okay, we will do that.
That would be great. Thank you. Something else. So, you know, I like to be proactive instead of reactive. I really hope the integrators are getting with these feed mills. My chicks are only a week old, and I know when I get a delivery over the weekend or next week, you know, they're real great about spills, and we try to get them as quick as we can. But if they roll in here 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, by the time we get out there 5:30, 6 o'clock, you know, we've got all kinds of birds. So I'm not complaining ahead of time, but I'm just trying to be proactive and hoping that we can get a little bit of help in that regard.
Yeah, I agree. It's everybody working together to, you know, to do all the things that we can do to keep any type of birds, you know, away from our production areas. That's for sure.
Yeah, we got to be a team, and you know, it's just we just all got to pull together. And there's a lot of areas of, you know, of improvement.
Yes, and I think the things that we can do on our farm certainly help. I mean, I have a sawhorse at the end of my lane we have the biosecurity signs too, if anybody needs those. And I have a little pump up sprayer out there telling them, you know, I don't want anybody coming up the lane unless they absolutely have to, but pump up sprayer, you know, put out there with everybody spraying. And we even have a little, I call it the deer trail camera out there, and I can watch people and I can make sure that they're doing what I ask them to do. I think that those are the things as growers, you know, we can control. Jason?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. We have had some calls with the allied industries through Delaware and Maryland's emergency management public-private partnership lists, basically explaining to them what kind of biosecurity measures they need to be taking when they're making, you know, if they absolutely have to visit a poultry farm, how they, you know, how they can do that safely.
And that's in addition to the radio spots we've got going on 10 different stations across Delmarva with good basic biosecurity tips for producers. So just wanted to give some updates on the messaging we've been pushing out.
Sorry, the biosecurity part is just so important. I still have people calling me from, I call them chicken stores, but the stores where as growers often frequent, and I still get the complaints. They're coming in with their chicken shoes on and leaving manure on. That's just unacceptable. We cannot have that. I mean, there is a reason why we talk about dedicated footwear, you know, for each poultry house, not coming out of your poultry house, and certainly not going to the chicken stores, I'll call them. So please, if you see anybody, don't be afraid to call them out, because this is what, you know, this is how this is going to spread, and we don't need that.
Not only that, not practicing biosecurity can leave you liable. I mean, if you're not doing your part, we're all in this together, and you can come back and face it. And it may be that you don't get indemnified. There are a lot of different avenues that can happen if you're not practicing biosecurity. So make sure you follow the best management practices to the best of your ability.
Good point, John. And I believe there's a fact. Is there a fact sheet on that? I believe that we have that Paul Goringer,
Yes.
our legal specialist, has written, and you could be liable.
Yeah, Paul and I put that out when the 2014-15. It should be on our website, and it goes over, you know, if you don't follow the rules, you do leave yourself open. But and it's, you know, we've used it at times. We have people that don't want to listen, but most of the time people are good. There's just a few people out there that we need to educate.
Agree.
Hey, I see Dr. Odeon's there.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Odium just joined us.
There you are.
Good morning, Dr. Odian. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to see you. Do you have any updates that you can give us?
Where you at?
We've got, Steve gave a pretty good overview of where we're at with the response right now.
Okay.
Yep.
That probably not much more to add than what Mr. Conley told you all.
Well, good. You've done a great job, and your team has been really good out there. We really appreciate them.
Dr. Odian works for the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and he is our state veterinarian, just so you'll know. If anybody has any questions. Georgie, you have something?
I don't have any questions. I think you know, the first question we received today, and then I believe Tina Hill also, you know, I think growers are looking for clarity on, you know, if you are in one of these areas, when will you potentially get birds back? And I think that there is some guidance that was mentioned earlier but there is still a lot of unknown, because we have to get to the point where birds are composted and capped, and then, you know, the clock starts. So I know that leaves people who have bills and expenses with a lot of unknowns. But as quickly as that can happen, I'm sure that is going to happen, to try to get birds back in there.
On Georgie, the other thing is, you know, reach out to your bank, reach out to Farm Credit, whoever, you know, you're financing. We should all have certainly good communications with our loan officers, and, you know, let them know what's going on. Very important. Megan has put in the chat, this is a link to the biosecurity measures and the liability, you know, if you are the person that, you know, would be deemed to be spreading avian influenza. And Georgia, you want to put in what you just put in?
Yeah, I just put in Delaware did offer some nutrient management credits for this today. So that is the Qualtrics survey. If you answer those questions properly. And I'm going to give a brief presentation once everybody kind of gets done their questions about biosecurity, and that those questions will reference that.
Yeah, this is Dave Carroll. I'm actually from Georgie Mushroom Company, not in the poultry business. But what have we learned about recovery in states where this first hit? How soon do the poultry growers get their chicks back and recover from an infection?
Would Dr. Odian or the guy from USDA, would you guys be able to answer that, like from past experience? Or
and James Bishop, are you able to answer that one on your past experience in other places, how quick it takes for recovery?
You know, there's just an awful lot of variables, which I admit sounds like a government answer. So something that the APHIS has produced in terms of the 8 steps that are involved in going from, you know, you're infected to you're back producing what you were producing before. That guidance says 60 to 120 days is under optimum conditions. And so, you know, I know that's not the most satisfying answer for some, but that's probably the most reasonable thing I can say, because there's so many variables and each premises is a little bit different.
So James, can you clarify that more? Is that for the farm that was affected or for all farms in the zone?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. That's for the farm that was affected.
So the unaffected farms then potentially could be back in based upon whenever the companies feel free to put birds there, or feel safe, I should say.
Well, John, this is Steve Conley. It would require that hold orders that we have placed on those farms to be lifted, and then the companies would need to make a decision. We will, you know, when we will try to base removal of the hold orders on, you know, sound science in risk for those facilities. And as I mentioned before, it could happen as quick as 30 days after the beginning of the composting process at the index farm.
Thank you, Steve. That's kind of the question. There is a difference between those in the zone versus those that are affected. Thank you very much.
So Steve,
but we're going to.
Steve, the order comes down from USDA to like MDA or DDA. Is that how it kind of flows?
No, actually, that order came from the state veterinarian,
The state
went to the companies. In that order has to do with movement of birds.
Right.
The other order that was signed by Secretary Bartenfelder had to do with the movement of litter.
Right. So two issues.
There's two, yes. One's about getting getting birds back in from the layover, and one is about making sure that we're being wise with moving of litter, which make sure that we have the least possible risk that we can.
Thanks, Steve. I just put in the chat the APHIS, the wildlife damage information that Steve sent to me. So I put that in the chat also.
There's a question in the chat,
Yeah.
and it is, in Delaware, if you live in a hot zone, after 14 days, do you need a permit to spread on your own fields?
Bob, can you answer that one?
I sure can, Jenny.
Thank you.
As long as it doesn't go on a public road, if the fields are adjacent to the production area, or you can drive through field A down a farm lane, or just cross the cropland to get to field B, you're good. But you do need a permit if you have to take the manure out on a public road. Please call me again, 302-698-4556, direct to my desk. And I know we have email, Jenny, but I like the farmers to call me. It gives me a better sense of what's really going on.
Yes, I agree. I know you and Howard have spent a lot of time on the phone, and I think a lot of farmers would rather talk to you in person, also.
Jeff Price, also from Georgia Mushroom Company. Just a quick question regarding the permitting. So from farms in Delaware and Maryland, once you satisfy the 14 days, if you need a permit, you get a permit. Does that allow you then to cross state lines, or is it still only within state?
Jenny, do you want me to answer that?
Sure. Yes, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, Jenny, I can just answer for Delaware. As far as through traffic goes, then yes, it is allowed to cross state lines. And that's as per Secretary Skewes. I think many of the listeners out there know that at least from Delaware, and I'm pretty sure from Maryland too, a lot of the manure goes up to the Pennsylvania mushroom facilities. They're a prime customer for Delaware poultry litter. So yeah, as long as the load can go to PA or somewhere else, as long as it's not being dumped somewhere in Delaware.
Mm-hmm. I'll ask one of the veterinarians on to answer this. We have a few on. How long is this threat going to be a concern?
How long is this going to be a concern?
Go ahead, Dr. Dean.
At this point, we've gone a week without a new infected premise, so that's a good thing. If we continue with no new detections, probably I'd say 60 days, 90 days. If we get a new detection, all bets are off.
Okay. Oh, let's see. Another question. If you are not in a restricted area in Maryland, why can't you spread on adjacent farms like Delaware? So I assume you're asking if you can move it to Delaware. So if you're not in a restricted area in Maryland, why can't you spread on adjacent farms in Delaware?
No, on adjacent farms in Maryland.
Oh,
why do you have to, if you're not infected, why do you have to wait 14 days? And if you're not going out on the road, why can't you move it out on a farm that's adjacent to your production houses?
So your question really is, why do you have to wait 14 days?
Mm-hmm. What's the difference between that?
Well, I'll take a stab at that. This is Steve Conley. I mean, we met with the epidemiologist from USDA, and they said that if we allowed the poultry litter to sit 14 days, it removed the risk of transmitting avian influenza. So our order says poultry litter needs to be 14 days old before you spread it. And that's just to make sure that we're not taking a risk, because everybody's in this together. So, we don't want to take, even though your birds are tested prior to going to slaughter, they aren't tested the day before, generally the day before they go to slaughter. It might be a week before, and you may not have any detectable symptoms, but there is some risk that they could have disease and you not know it. And to eliminate that risk, we're requiring 14 days waiting before you can spread it.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Tracy. Another question, they wanted someone from Maryland to answer this. If can loads of chicken litter go into Pennsylvania? Howard.
If I understand it, says, can someone from Maryland, let me see, can loads of litter cross state lines into PA after 14 days with a permit? You actually don't need a permit unless that manure was generated or produced in the restricted zone. But if you were in the restricted zone, again, you would need 14 days plus a permit. If you're out of the restricted zone, you need to wait the 14 days, but there's nothing stopping it from going wherever it needs to go, whether that be out of state or used within state. It makes no difference.
Okay, Howard, here's another one. If the litter has been in the manure shed for over 14 days, do you still have to wait until your flock goes out before moving the litter into the field?
I'll say the short answer to that is no, but I would prefer that you contact me directly just to get a clear understanding of your situation. For an example, let's just say you have birds that I'm going to say are within a week from going out. I would going to encourage you probably to wait until that flock left, even though the litter is more than 14 days old. If we can make that work, I think it just eliminates some risk. But technically, yes, as long as your litter is over 14 days of age, you could use it and move it from that site.
Jenny, this is Bob Coleman here. I think we're handling it a little differently in Delaware because our secretary's order doesn't really address that particular scenario. I am asking farmers in Delaware, I want to repeat this, in Delaware only, to just hold everything in place till the 14 days goes, even if the manure has been in there for a year. But again, if the farmer will call me, I can always shoot that up the chain of command for clarification. And that's no problem whatsoever. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, Bob. James, I don't know if you can answer this next one. It says, does the USDA have money program to help if you are in the 10-kilometer zone have a longer than normal layout?
If you're in the 10-kilometer zone, but you are not an infected premises, there is not indemnity money available for the effects of being within the control zone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This question, isn't there a requirement to test all birds 24 hours prior to movement? Is that a company, is that Dr. Odian or who?
Yes, in Maryland, there is.
All birds have to be tested 24 hours prior to movement.
Yes.
Is that the ones that are in the hot zone, or is that all birds that would be moving potentially?
That was the standard for before we had to.
That was the standard before we had a HPAI case. That's just normal operation.
Right. They're all tested before they leave. But now we're asking the service techs would, ask to, certainly they're not coming on the farms, but 24 hours before, they leave, they're asking for so many, I'll say fresh, dead birds to be, put at the end of the lane or wherever, so they can come and swab them to make sure that they're free of high path AI before they move. If that's not correct, please correct me.
I think in the past, before high path, all birds were tested like 7 days within a 7-day window of movement. And I think they've tightened it up now that we've got high path.
I think you're right, Georgie.
Let me see. Is there any other questions that I have missed? One thing that I do want to address, and we've had a lot of questions, and I'll ask the departments of ag if they can help me on this, but it's the dissemination of information. As extension, we can't send out information until we get it from Maryland Department of Ag or Delaware Department of Ag. And then, there's this time that service techs are calling and telling the growers there could be high path AI in the area. And don't know, like after this, do we need to get together to have, for some of us to chat, to figure out how we're going to get this information. I know it's very delicate information, but when we have high path AI, I had some of the chicken store people, call me and say, I didn't even know what was going on. They certainly don't want to be sending out, their service people to farms in areas, of course, they're always practicing good biosecurity, but, there may be a time where it's just like, no, we really can't take that risk.
Jenny, I'll take a stab at this.
Okay, thank you.
So when we have birds with clinical signs such as higher mortality, or you can see that they're sick, we'll have samples taken from the birds. The samples will then go to one of the 4 labs in Maryland or Delaware and be tested. If it comes back as a presumptive positive, we have to get confirmation from the lab in Ames, Iowa for the U.S. Veterinary Laboratory at USDA. We can't announce anything until it's a confirmed positive. And I believe that the grapevine within the chicken growing community, it moves at the speed of light. And people suspect something's up before it can be confirmed. And I don't think we can really improve on that issue. It does have trade impacts whenever you have AI. And if we went out and said that we had a presumed positive without confirming it, it could definitely affect our ability to ship chicken and or eggs out of the state of Maryland into other states or into other countries. So we have to be very careful that it is we're accurate in what we say. Also, I think that we've tried to communicate directly to producers and the companies out of an abundance of caution, because the more that you put information in press releases, social media, the greater likelihood you'll draw some people that are that like to attack production agriculture and may actually cause more harm than notifying everybody. That's one of the reasons we're very careful about naming the actual farms that may be index farms and locating them on maps, because we don't need a group of animal rights activists at the end of the lane complicating everybody's life. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Steve. That's, it's a very delicate situation. We understand, growers and people need, to know. So I would say as a grower, to be in contact, with your service.
Yeah. And Jenny, that's one reason, like with Howard, he's gone to great lengths to reach out to growers within the restricted zones in both Cecil and Queen Anne's counties to make sure that they know how to apply for a permit, but without waving a red flag in front of some of the people that don't like the industry.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. Good, thanks.
And Jenny, just to kind of tack on about the public notification side of it, whenever we do get that confirmation, if it's a case in a new county where we have not had a case, the Joint Information Center will issue a press release.
Okay, good.
If it is a case where in a county where we already do have some active cases, it'll be posted on our websites. And I'll put the addresses for.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
And just some clarity on the testing prior to slaughter. Somebody sent me a text message, and in the 10K, it's 24 hours prior to slaughter. From the 10K to the 20K, it's 24 to 48 hours, and everything else is 14 days.
Jason just put up the link for Delaware. Bob, there's a question here in Delaware. If we have litter in our manure shed that is over 14 days old, move to the field, but only have 12 days out of birds, you want us to move the litter from the shed when we have 2-day-old chicks? Question mark.
That's correct. And I happen to know the grower here. They're very good growers, Jenny. Yes, I think everybody needs to bear in mind that there's common sense and then there's government sense. They're two different things. So the thought here is that the 2-day-old chicks are not anywhere near as susceptible to getting avian influenza. There's a lot of evidence to that. So yes, we would like you to wait the 14 days, even though your layout has really been compacted down to 8 days, 10 days, 12 days. The chicks should be just fine.
Good, thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
Jenny, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Mike.
So, and whoever, I guess, and I apologize, I missed the first part. I had trouble logging on if this was already answered. But in the hot zone, I was on there a few minutes ago when he mentioned about after capping it and everything. But what I want to know is what is the goal? What is the goal line that we have to reach in order for them to release that and say, okay, chicks can now be placed?
Sure. Yeah, we did talk about that, but go ahead, Jason. I'll let you, or not Jason, but James, if you want to kind of reiterate what you said earlier.
Dr. Odin, do you want to?
Or Dr. Odin.
The goal basically is virus control. When we get an infected prem, big things are contain, control, and eliminate. So you set the 10K zone around the infected prem as part of that whole process. And the idea is once you set the virus in the prem, contained and controlled and eliminated, then we can, the end goal would be to release that control area. What you're calling the hot zone is what we call the control area. When we refer to the hot zone, we're talking about the virus infected area on the prem. So just to kind of make a little clarification in terms of terminology. So our hot zone is actually full of virus, where your hot zone is what we call the control area.
Okay. So then, I guess that's what I'm asking though, is what determines for that control zone to be released? As far as, what are you doing in the hot zone then, where the virus was? What do they have to accomplish before you can release the control zone?
The birds all have to be in compost.
Okay.
And basic virus elimination has to be started, as in C&Ding equipment that was used to compost the birds. Mm-hmm. And the composting is capped, meaning the compost piles are sealed, and they're also getting up to temperature to properly. So, and then all the equipment has to be cleaned and disinfected, and basic outside of the premise needs to be started to be virus elimination. If you've got outsides of barns that have a lot of caked stuff on the outside, that'll be clean. But your basic virus elimination on the outside, once the sun bakes the outside of that barn for several days, you've eliminated the virus that way. But if there's organic material that's 2 inches thick, you got to kind of reduce that organic material before the sun can have the effect. So all that kind of has to be accomplished. And then once that's been accomplished, we can consider lifting the control zone.
So essentially,
basically,
then
it's making sure we contained and eliminated the virus on the premise.
so if it's capped and like you said in composting, and then temperatures are rising, you're working on the outside as far as getting that cleaned up, then in theory, then like within a week after being capped, it should be able to be released?
No, research has told us it takes minimum of 14 days at a certain temperature in a compost pile for the virus to be released, or to be eliminated, I should say.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just misunderstood
minimum.
you. I thought you said that once the piles are capped and temperature is rising, at that point, you could then release the controls. I thought that's what you were saying, you could release.
There's a time frame that the minimum of 14 days time frame with from the capping of the last window and the temperatures being maintained. So it has to be maintained for minimum 14 days.
The temperature has to be maintained for minimum 14 days in the pile?
And every day there's somebody sticking a thermometer into these windrows and making sure the temperatures are and recording daily temperature readings to make sure these windrows are composting at the proper temperature.
Okay. And that just brings up another question I had about the composting. I mean, I think from all of our composting training that we've had in the past, it was always like 4 to 5 days to turn the pile to keep the oxygen in there so that the bacteria can thrive to continue the breakdown process to prevent it from rotting, so it actually heats. Is that not the case
There's
anymore?
Two different types of composting. One is regular composting, and then there's virus elimination composting. The virus elimination composting takes much longer time, and the temperatures have to be kept at a longer time period.
Gotcha.
So that's why the compost temperatures are monitored every day.
Yeah, and hey, Mike, if I could just jump in, it's Steve Conley. So USDA's recommendation is it goes through 2 14-day cycles. So that's we're in the process of getting permission to allow the in-house composting for the first cycle. This is for broiler operations, indoor composting for the first compost, and then possibly do the second compost outside, which would allow people to start doing the cleaning and disinfecting and the virus elimination in the poultry house itself. So it's, to be realistic, it's probably going to be, like I mentioned before, probably 28 to 30 days before that, and if everything goes right, before that facility is cleared.
So you're saying 28 to 30 days from the date of the initial
capping
thing, or from a capping, you're still 28 to 30 days out.
Yeah. It may be a little bit quicker, but we don't want to give you a date because it will be wrong.
Right. I'm just trying to get you make sure this goal line should be set in concrete of what the accomplishment is. I mean, I know that the timeline can be fluid with it, but because like you're just telling me something different than what the vet just said. He said once it was
no, that's when the clock starts, when it was capped, but it's required to go through 2 of these composting cycles.
Okay. All right. So yeah,
originally we were looking at doing both of those in-house. We're in the process of getting an okay from the Maryland Department of Environment so we could do the second one outside and hope to speed up the process for cleaning and disinfecting of the premise.
Okay.
If you remove the compost down to the barn and are able to compost it outside, that will allow you to go in and do the proper cleaning and disinfecting inside of the premise. And I think that will actually speed up the process.
I had another question. I don't know if you can comment on this, but it says, can you give an update on how the compost is going at the Queenian's site? Can you do that?
I've not been there, but everything that I've heard is it's going very well.
So how many days are we into that in the Queen Anne site? How many days are we into the composting now?
I don't know exactly. It's close to a week though.
So then you're at a minimum of another 3 weeks after that then. Would that be correct?
I think that would be correct.
Be fluid, but that could be. But
unless we have a positive somewhere else, and then we're back to ground zero. I think that the Queen Anne situation's better than the Cecil County situation in getting back to receiving chicks.
Do you know? I know the USDA had said that there was no indemnification for growers that are just in the control zone that have extended layouts. Do you know, can anyone answer if there's anything in the works at the state level to see if there's any help for growers in the control zones?
I know that there's a request from DCA to develop a program, and I believe that Maryland Farm Bureau is also going to be making a request also. But I don't know but this is all.
The requests have been made, and we're already looking at ways that we could do that. And the governor's office is aware of it. So, we're looking at what that could be, but it's kind of early in the process to come up with what that decision is.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We appreciate that very much, because we've all had lots of calls, and I understand certainly everyone's concerns. Any other questions, or anybody want to say anything?
We've actually gone past our hour, everybody. There's been some good questions, kind of got a slow start. We had some good questions there towards the end. Is there any last questions?
Georgie, if we don't have any other questions, and Georgie has a couple of things that she would like to share, but we certainly want to, if people need to go or whatever, but she has some really important things I'd like for people to certainly hear. So Georgie, I will turn it over to you.
All right. I'm going to put this Qualtrics survey one more time in the chat. And so the presentation I'm going to share with you is going to allow you to see that. You have to allow me to share my screen. And so I'm just going to try to, for you, those of you who are not related to poultry or having direct contact with poultry, you may not want to stay on for this part, because I'm going to hit on some biosecurity things. And really, it's the kind of looking at the things that maybe you don't think about. I know we get busy on our farms and we're moving around, but I kind of threw this together this morning, and just wanted to kind of share things I've observed people do and on my own farm, but just things to think about. And really just talking about footwear in particular, depending on, really every house should have its own dedicated footwear by house. And that should be footwear that does not leave that poultry house or that control room. It should not be footwear that takes you from one house to another house. Because remember, our challenge right now is really about making sure that, we're not controlling where these, migratory birds may be going to the bathroom. And if you step in a dropping outside and then walk in your poultry house, then that could really cause an issue in terms of introducing that virus into the house. So I think we used to kind of think in terms of, we have farm biosecurity, but you really need to think about every house as its own biosecurity location that you're trying to keep safe and protect. If you have the opportunity to use disposable boots, use disposable boots. If you don't have dedicated footwear and you have access to disposable boots, get disposable boots. You would only use those boots for one house. Don't wear them outside the house, and then, in and out of a house. And most often you'll see, when you have a service technician come, they may use a pair of disposable boots. And especially if somebody's making a repair at a location where you normally would not have a foot bath, and let's say your cross auger is on the end of the chicken house, then put a foot bath in that area where that person is going to be going in and out of that house, potentially with that single pair of boots. And really, it's on you as a grower, and I'm a grower on myself, to inspect what you expect. And so, make sure that, you're, making sure that people are putting on this protective equipment and following biosecurity procedures. you're protecting your investment, but you're also protecting those around you and the industry as a whole. So when you look at, some people say, well, I'm not going to pay for dedicated footwear by house, or I'm not going to pay for disposable boots. The cost of these items, you could get a decent pair of shoes to wear in a poultry house, $25 to $50. You think about people who have to be out of birds for an extended period of time, and all this that people are having to go through, that is nothing compared to what is happening on farms at this point. So just keep that in mind, that we're all part of the solution to help and resolve this. Foot baths, you can use a variety of things for foot baths. You can use the little boot trays that you can put your boots on when you walk in the house. You can use a Rubbermaid container. You can use a feed holder. So there's different things you use. You can use a shallow dish pan to be able to make a foot bath. But one thing I think that's a little bit of misconception is that a foot bath resolves everything, right? A foot bath, I stepped in my foot bath. And it's not just good enough to step in your foot bath. If your shoes are dirty, that foot bath is for disinfecting the shoes with either some type of disinfectant. And when you have organic material on that shoe, that foot bath is not addressing that organic material. So foot baths are for disinfecting. They're not for cleaning. So make sure that all the organic material is removed from your shoes. And that disinfectant should be changed often. When you start to see it get a little discoloration to it, it probably has lost its efficacy. So, every couple of days that should be changed. These are just a couple of examples of some disinfecting products. The one is a dry bleach. I'm not, saying these are the only ones. There's a website you can go to. We can share it later. It's on the APHIS webpage, and you can look up, disinfectants for avian influenza. You can identify those, but also check with your integrator and make sure that depending on what type of chickens you're growing, you may or may not be able to use certain products. So if you're an organic grower, Virkon S may not be acceptable to use in and around that poultry area. So just keep in mind to check with your integrator and make sure that they are products that they're okay with you using. And then this is this is those dedicated shoe wear that is in this poultry house, right? So I showed the picture of them from the top, but this is what they actually look like on the bottom. And so every poultry farmer's kind of seen this on their shoe, right? And I went out this morning and I did this. I grabbed, this is the person that helps me on the farm shoes, grabbed this pair of shoes. I looked at them and I said, okay. And so then I said, okay, what does every poultry farmer do a lot of times when they go to walk out of the house? They'll scrape the bottom of their shoe on their door jamb, or they may have something there to scrape that off. So I scraped off as much as I could and swept it up. And that's what was in the pile. That was the organic material that was on the bottom of that shoe. So then I said, okay. And I apologize for my appearance because I did this about 7 o'clock this morning. I went out there and I timed myself and I cleaned the bottom of one of those shoes. And I scrubbed and I scrubbed and I scrubbed and only did it on one shoe, trying to just get the organic material off. And after 6.5 minutes, this is the shoe on the left is the shoe that I scrubbed. And you can still see after scrubbing very vigorously for 6.5 minutes, all that organic material was still not gone. So if you were leaving one chicken house and walking to another, and you walk along and you don't do any cleaning of that shoe, and you just say, oh, I stepped in my foot bath, I'm disinfected, but you have all this organic material on there, you are not accomplishing, we are not practicing the biosecurity that we believe we're practicing. So please make sure that you're mindful of that. And so when I started this process of washing this boot, I took another boot and I just set it in a solution and just let it sit there with no scrubbing or anything like that. So you can see still that boot soaked for 6.5 minutes. There is still organic material on that boot. So I just want to hit home that and making sure that, we're making good choices and doing the right things as far as our biosecurity. Try to select soles that have as least amount of tread possible when you are selecting shoes. I'm not endorsing either pair of these shoes, but anything you can make it easier for somebody to change their shoes from house to house, the more likely we're going to have people implement and do that. And then one thing that in this picture, this one pair of boots has some neoprene at the top. And you cannot really disinfect neoprene. So really a boot or some type of shoe that is really all rubberized that can be fully disinfected is best. Again, dedicated shoe wear by house, or disposable boots are even better. And one thing I didn't mention on the disposables, I prefer the 6 mil ones because I think they last a little longer. But you can go on to Amazon, you can go online, and you can find disposable boots. And again, the cost versus risk here, I think it's nominal when it really comes down to it. So that's really all I wanted to say about footwear. But remember, there's lots of pieces of the puzzle to biosecurity. And I've been to farms where I've been asked to go where people are not properly composting their dead birds. When you have migratory birds, when you have vultures flying around, they're hanging out, they're commingling, the opportunity for, if we're not doing a good job composting birds and we have exposed birds and we've got vermin and vultures and other things coming into those piles, there is the opportunity for the transfer of disease like that. So we have got to be doing the very best job we can, making sure that birds are properly composted, they're properly covered. If there's any way that you can secure your composting area so that those animals don't have access to it, then do that. Those are all pieces of the puzzle that we have control over, we influence, that can hopefully lessen the chances of this disease spreading from one location to another. And so we all play a role in that. We have to make sure we set the expectation, if somebody comes to our farm, hey, you didn't change your boots, or you didn't clean your boots, or whatever that is, we can't be afraid to say, hey, stop, please do this, because, there's a lot at stake for them as an individual, but their neighbors and for our industry. So I just want to share that. If you are looking to get credit, you can stop.
Did you put that in the chat?
Yeah, I've put it in the chat multiple times.
Why don't you put it in again?
I'm going to stop the share. I'll put it in there one more time. And then if anybody has any questions, there's lots of biosecurity information out there. We just got to make sure we're implementing it, and so that hopefully we're doing everything we possibly can with our power to protect our industry.
Thanks, Georgie.
Thanks, Georgie.
Yeah, don't forget the cell phones too. That's the other one. We carry them with us everywhere, man. Disinfect those bad boys as much as you can. All right, we're going to finish up here, but I see Jason, one last thing. You have your hand up there.
Yeah, just one last comment from James, USDA. I hear people asking a lot of great questions, and they're trying to do the right things and follow the rules. And I just appreciate people being here and being attentive and trying to be good citizens in the poultry community. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks, James. We appreciate you being here as well. And with
that means a lot, James, that you're here from the USDA and as growers and extension, and everybody's trying to do the right thing, which sometimes we're not sure what that is. But thank you.
Getting us all on the same page is important.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end this meeting. But again, thanks, everybody, and continue to ask questions. We'll work with you to get answers. Everybody have a great afternoon.